World War I, often referred to as the Great War, was one of the most significant and devastating conflicts in modern history. Fought between 1914 and 1918, the war fundamentally changed the political landscape of the world, reshaped national borders, and set the stage for many of the events that would follow in the 20th century, including World War II. Over 16 million soldiers and civilians died as a result of the war, and millions more were wounded, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. The roots of World War I are complex, involving a mix of nationalism, militarism, imperialism, and entangling alliances. At the turn of the 20th century, Europe was divided into powerful nation-states, each competing for territory, influence, and resources. Nationalism was a driving force in Europe, as countries like Germany, France, and Britain sought to assert their dominance, while smaller ethnic groups, such as the Slavs and the Balkans, yearned for independence from empires like Austria-Hungary. Militarism had led to an arms race, with nations building large standing armies and powerful navies. The belief that war was inevitable encouraged countries to prepare for conflict, further escalating tensions. Imperialism caused friction as European powers competed for colonies and resources around the globe, especially in Africa and Asia. The major empires, including Britain, France, Germany, and Russia, sought to expand their influence, leading to competition and distrust. The complex system of alliances created a volatile environment. The Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente, France, Russia, and Britain, were the two main blocs. These alliances meant that if one country was attacked, others were obliged to defend it, which could, and did, escalate a regional conflict into a full-scale war. The spark that ignited the war came on June 28, 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the attack and, with backing from Germany, issued an ultimatum. Serbia, backed by Russia, refused to comply with all of Austria-Hungary's demands. And within weeks, the major powers of Europe were drawn into a war that spread across the continent. By August 1914, the war had begun. On one side were the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and later the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. On the other side were the Allied powers, France, Britain, Russia, and eventually Italy, Japan, and the United States. The early phases of the war saw a rapid movement of troops. Germany implemented the Schlieffen Plan, which was designed to quickly defeat France by invading through neutral Belgium. However, the German advance was halted at the First Battle of the Marne, and what followed was a stalemate that resulted in the infamous trench warfare on the Western Front. By 1918, after 4 years of intense fighting, both sides were exhausted. The Central Powers were collapsing from within. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire were facing internal revolutions, and Germany was dealing with severe food shortages, strikes, and unrest at home. In the face of advancing Allied troops and the growing discontent of the German people, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated the throne on November 9, 1918. 2 days later, on November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed, ending the fighting on the Western Front. This day is still remembered as Armistice Day or Veterans Day in many countries. The formal end of the war came with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, military restrictions, and heavy reparations. Many historians believe the terms of the treaty were excessively punitive, contributing to the economic hardship and political instability that would eventually lead to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the outbreak of World War II. The aftermath and legacy of World War I had a profound impact on the world. The war led to the collapse of several empires, including Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Imperial Russia, which had already been overthrown in the Russian Revolution of 1917. New nations were created, and borders were redrawn across Europe and the Middle East. The war also marked the beginning of the United States' rise as a global power, as well as the decline of traditional European powers like Britain and France. The war gave rise to new ideologies, including communism in Russia and fascism in Italy and Germany, that would shape the 20th century. The human cost of the war was immense. Over 9 million soldiers and 7 million civilians died as a result of the fighting, disease, and famine. The physical and psychological scars of the war would linger for decades, with an entire generation of young men lost to the conflict. A lasting impact on warfare and society. World War I forever changed the nature of warfare. It was the first truly industrialized war, with nations mobilizing their entire economies for the war effort. The use of new technologies like tanks, aircraft, and chemical weapons transformed how wars were fought. The concept of total war, in which civilian populations became targets, foreshadowed the even greater horrors of World War II. Socially, the war had a lasting impact as well. Women entered the workforce in large numbers to fill roles left vacant by men, leading to greater calls for women's rights and the eventual granting of suffrage in many countries.